when I overheard you guys saying before I could talk that, all right, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? And I heard in the back of my head, no, you're going to run out. So I've always been really good at trusting that inner voice and inner pull and inner calling inside of me. And a lot of people ignore that. A lot of people push that down.
Nick, why don't we do this? I'd rather have you give them sort of an update, because I don't think in those 3 episodes we talked much about, we maybe hinted, but we didn't talk much about your journey sort of personally, and then how it relates to real estate. And I know it'll affect a lot of people. So if you want to start that, I'd rather organically jump in where I want to kind of elaborate a little bit and let the Wicked Smart listeners get to know you and then how you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even since the last time that I was on the show, I think so much has changed and evolved and continued to grow. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to be back on and be able to share a little bit of time with you. Yeah, so if you just starting from the beginning, whenever someone asks me how I got involved in real estate, I always go back to my snowboarding accident because that led into getting into real estate, and you're intimately involved in that for sure. So it was a day I was at ski club with my friends. I was in 8th grade. I was only 14. And my friends and I brought our gear on the bus to get ready so we wouldn't waste a precious moment once we got to the mountain. We got to the mountain and headed straight for the chairlift. And on the ride up, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining earlier. People were wiping out everywhere. However, that didn't stop us. The chairlift actually went right over the terrain park and went over the biggest jump. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's what I'm doing, 100%. That's what I'm hitting. So got to the top, buckled in my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. Going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, which threw me off balance. And that was the last thing that I remember. So I was told that, and I pieced together the events of the day based on what family has told me and what people who were there have told me. I was told that I landed on my head. I wasn't wearing a helmet. I also learned that the only protection that my head had was the goggles that I was wearing. So I wore some really thick goggles with a lot of padding on them. And I was told that they not only braced my impact initially, but as I continued to roll down the mountain and hit my head, the goggles mysteriously moved to cushion each blow. So that was the first thing that happened, and partly why I'm here where I am today. Second thing was they had to intubate me because of the severity of my injuries. So there was only one paramedic out of all the paramedics in the Worcester County area who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. He was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. The third thing being, once I got to the hospital and I was resting in a coma in the ICU, you and Mom said the doctors came into my room to share. I was out. I was out for the count. I was in a coma. They said just based on the impact alone, I probably would have been out 7 or 10 days. However, they had to partially induce me just because of the severity, because they were afraid, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just sharing it for the listeners. They were afraid that if I woke up, I would panic and I would start worrying about what happened, who are you people, what's going on, and the swelling, which was already such in my brain, it would go up and then I would die. So it was important that when the doctors came to share the news and the not so positive updates, at least initially, and for the first several weeks after that, you said, no, not in front of him. Because you realized that
I actually can't take credit. It was Mom, but yes.
Well, you're a unit. You're a unit in my mind. So
I'm giving proper credit where credit's due for the listeners. Go ahead.
Okay. So that was the third thing, and there's always three things that I point to my story that at least early on were so critical to my survival, my ability to thrive, and even running out of the hospital, which was my goal. So after a month, I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston, and that's where I began my journey to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And there were long days for me. So I would need help getting ready from my physical therapist in the morning, and she would help me shower again. If you guys can picture that, I needed help to distinguish that I had to do the water before the soap, as basic as that sounds, and then as basic and elementary as eating, like how to hold a fork. I had to do all that. And then I would start my days of physical, occupational, and speech. And it was these stories go together. It was early on in my recovery that I was still in a wheelchair. And I can remember overhearing you and mom talking to the doctors and strategizing weekly with them. All right, what's the next step? So we can make sure Nick makes a full recovery. And I heard in my head, no, you're going to run out, in the back of my head. And then I shared that. This was before I could talk. And I shared that with you guys, with you and the rest of my team of doctors and therapists. And then every day we were working towards my common goal of being able to run out of the hospital. And it was during that time that I utilized a system unknowingly to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's everything that I'm doing today. That's what I teach today. And
But Nick, before you jump into that, because this might be a good transition, I wrote down like three things, and we can elaborate, or I just want to stick these in there. So first of all, when you went through, okay, so you went through skill set retraining, technically. I'm equating this sort of to real estate. You had to relearn all that stuff you talked about, literally how to get dressed, how to take a shower, etc. But along the way, you also had the mental challenge, right? So you had the mental game and the skill set game. And the reason I bring this up is, in real estate, I've said numerous times, if I could just teach someone a skill set and it's that easy, it'd be no big deal. Like if they could just teach you that and you'd be done. But it's not. It's the mental game too. So I remember putting affirmations all around your wall, for example. So I don't know if you have any comments to the Wicked Smart listeners relative to real estate, but their life, how important the mental game is. I remember being in Burlington, Vermont 2 weeks ago, and a guy came up to Zach and I, who runs the club, and said, you know what the hardest part is of this whole thing? And we said, what? We thought he was going to say, like, you create a real estate's harder or whatever, which is not. But he said the mental piece. So I don't know if you have a comment on that before we, and I have another comment about your curriculum. Got any comments on that mental game piece? So it's enough.
Well, absolutely. And it goes right into what I was just going to talk about. And then that's the acronym. So unknowingly, I utilize a system, the STEP system, and STEP is an acronym. And that stands for support, trust, energy, and persistence. So support, you have to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends right from the beginning. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. And really, this is exactly what you were just talking about with it. And I don't get the opportunity to share that. You guys did such an awesome job. You had affirmations everywhere, all around my room. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk, so I couldn't get out of my room and get away from these messages if I wanted to. So that was a huge part of the S of the STEP system, my support. You guys were able to do that. That was just one of the things, which really enabled me to continue to make a full recovery. T is trust. You have to trust that once you take your first step, the next step is always going to be available to you. Follow it. And like I already shared this earlier. I'm kind of going out of order here, but when I overheard you guys saying before I could talk that, all right, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery. And I heard in the back of my head, no, you're going to run out. So I've always been really good at trusting that inner voice and inner pull and inner calling inside of me. And a lot of people ignore that. A lot of people push that down and just think, oh no, that's not important right now, or that's not realistic, or that's another big one. And then E is energy. Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And this is so important, and I don't get the opportunity to share this very often too, but since it's just you and I talking, Dad, I can absolutely go into detail on this. You guys had, and this is something I learned after the fact, but you had people come in and perform Reiki on me when I was in a coma. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all the way, definitely all the way in my recovery, I had help with my support and helping me take care of my energy. And then P is persistence. Once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. This is going to help you build an unstoppable momentum. So if you kind of fast forward a little bit, less than 60 days after being transported to Franciscan Children's in Boston, the rehab hospital, I ran out of the hospital. And then after running out of the hospital, it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And Dad, now, now I see that it's not, it's not that much time that went by. However, when you're younger, time is compressed. So like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it seems like a lifetime when you're a kid, when you're growing up. But now looking back on it, only 18 months after finishing my rehab, I came to you after picking up a book off your bookshelf, The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, that you had a real estate investment company. So I wanted to see how I could help and get involved. And right on that time, I was getting my driver's license. So although I couldn't drive with anyone in my car.
Oh, actually, wait a minute. So before you plant the seed of where I know you're gonna go, I just caught it. Let me kind of do a pause and tie some of this together. Then this is perfect time for you to segue into what you were doing then, which still to this day horrifies your mother. So for the Wicked Smart listener to know, if you listen to his step system, the support, the trust, energy, and the persistence, there's nothing about that you won't utilize in your real estate business. And if you're currently not in real estate and you have a challenge in your life like Nick went through, or it could be smaller or bigger, there is nothing about that system that wouldn't work there.